Everybody, it's Froese from Two Beards and a Board Game. Today I'm going to show you how to play Big Monster from Explorate. It plays 2 to 6, ages 10 plus with 25-minute play time. Now there's a very big difference between the 2-player game and 3 plus. So for this video we're going to go over how to play 3 plus, free-for-all, and team mode, and then I will do a separate video on how to do a 2-player game. Now, when you first open up your game, you're going to have a lot of punching out to do. There will be the game tiles used to play the game. There will be some circular tokens, as well as some more double-sided tiles. I have the Kickstarter version of this game, and so it includes the Kickstarter stuff. And to tell that it's a Kickstarter tile piece, there will be a little snail here in the corner of the player cards, as well as any of the monster tiles, things of that nature. We'll all have this little snail in the corner. One thing to note is when you are playing with Kickstarter pieces, for every Kickstarter piece you put in the game, you do need to take out a tile, a regular tile for the game, because it is there's a set number of tiles that you use during the game, so you can't just add extras to it. And you got your character tiles here. You got your circular board. Board has 2 sides. Your team side has the 2-player icon here. And then you have your individual, if you're doing a free-for-all match, or if you're doing 2 players, you're going to use this side as well. You're going to have a nice pad of paper. These are double-sided. This is to keep score at the end of the game. And of course you have your rule book as well. I'll explain all the rules. You may notice that the beginning of this rule book is going to be in French. This is a French game. But if you get to about the middle, again, if you have the Kickstarter version of the game, it's going to give you all of the different Kickstarter tiles. One thing I really like about the rule book is at the back it specifically tells you what each character does, as well as what each trophy does, and it gives a good explanation of what each monster does as well. We'll go over all this separately. Okay, one of the first things you're going to do when you set up your game is determine how many people you're going to play with. There are tiles in the game that are only used if you have 5 or more people. If you're playing with less than 5 people, you're going to find all of the tiles that have this 5 plus on them. I believe there's maybe 20 of them, and you're going to take all of those tiles and set them aside. You will not be using those unless you have 5 or more players in this game. What you're going to do here is you're going to shuffle up your player tiles, and you're going to give each player 2 of these tiles. We'll just take 2 off the top here. And each player is going to choose which tile they want, and then they're going to place their tile face up in front of them like this. And then their non-used character is going to go face down in front of them with the ship up. That's going to be their landing area, so to say, where when you're drafting, you'll place stacks of tiles, the stack of tiles that you want to give the other player. Next, you'll go ahead and shuffle up these tiles as best as you can. And then you're going to put them in stacks of 10. So you'll just count out 10 tiles, 3, 6, 9, 10. And you'll keep doing that until you have all of your stacks of, all of your tiles in stacks. And you'll put 1 stack on each player's ship. And then your extra stacks, you'll just go ahead and set to the side. Once you've got that set up, you're going to go ahead and take your mutagen tiles here. These are double-sided white tiles for mutagen monsters that transform during the game. And you can just set these kind of where any player can get to them. It suggests putting them in 4 stacks, but ultimately it really doesn't matter. People will go through them as they build their board and need to transform their monsters. Also, you can give it comes with 4 player aids. This tells you how many tile is in the game. Mostly gives you an idea of what these points are worth. how many each of the metals are worth, how much these crystals are worth. And so you can hand those out to people. You know, if you're having a larger game, people might have to share, but there's a little reference card. The most important thing on there, honestly, I think is the crystal points. It's also on the game board at the top. Okay, then you're going to set up your metals. Now there's a couple of different types of metals here. Again, if you're playing free-for-all, you're going to use the one here. If you're playing as team, you're going to use the one with 2. As far as metals go, you're going to want to, you know, if we're going to set up here for a free-for-all game at first, so we're going to want to find the ones with the single-player symbol on it and put them in their corresponding locations. So that one goes there. And then there's a couple of tiles in here. Here you go. So there's 2 snow tiles. And so you can, if you want, you can randomize those as far as which of the snow ones is going to go out on the game at that time. Some of them you have to use. This minimum tile is actually a penalty tile that comes into play at the end of the game. That one's always the same. And I believe there's a couple of other ones that are always the same. But essentially, you're just going to want to find the tiles that you want. These are metals. During the game, you're going to try to achieve them to get extra points. And the most important thing to note here is to make sure that you're getting the correct, again, the ones with the single player on it if you're playing a free-for-all, and if you're playing a team, you're going to use the ones that have the 2-player symbol on them. Okay, so as far as metals go, metals are pretty easy. They all have point values on the back, and all but one of the metals is good. And the goal of the medal is to try to be the first person or the first team to get the number indicated on it. So in a free-for-all mode, if the first person to get 2 full big monsters gets this medal at the end of that round, they'll take this. This one is the first person to have 4 mutagens. This one's first person for 4 lava tiles. This is the first person to have 4 grass and or swamp tiles combined. So if they can have 2 of each, or 3 in 1. And then 3 desert tiles and 4 ruin tiles. Now, one thing important to note when doing medals is if at the end of that drafting round and people have flipped over their tiles, if there's a tie, let's say I got 4 mutagens at the same time somebody else got 4 mutagens, that's okay. Both people get that award. And I believe we have always just used the tiles that we're not using, the extra tiles, and we've just given those to people, or the extra medals, so that they can keep that in front of them, so they know that they have to have 5 points to score at the end. And then at the end of the game, this tile is the one outlier. It's the difference. At the end of the game, whoever has the fewest combined ruin and desert tiles gets this tile, and that is the negative 10 points tile. Okay, one of the main differences between individual mode and team mode is the side of the board you play with and the medals that you can earn. So when you're playing with the team mode, you're going to want to find your medals that have the 2s on them and put them down. And then you'll put the individual tile above that for those. And these are permanent medals. These ones that I'm going to put down here first are always the same. So those ones go there. And then this one goes here. Okay, and then for the grass, water, swamp area, and then the ice and the fire, you have a bunch of different things you can choose from as far as the different types of metals, but we'll go ahead and we'll use these ones here, and you just want to use the same type. You don't want to mix them up. So we'll do those 2 as the individual ones, and we'll put that one on top there. And then maybe let's do the big monster ones. And then we'll put the individual big monster on top here. But there are different tiles you can use. This one you can use, you know, down here in any of those spots. You could use this because it's a rune tile. You can, or a lava tile, so you could use that in these spots instead of the oh, you know what? You can't actually use the water ones here. That's my mistake. So we want to, let's use the rune ones here. So we do the runes here, and then the one like that. So there's different tiles you can use. It adds a little bit of variety of gameplay as far as the medals you can earn. And then the top of each one is going to be the individual medal. So a single person can earn this medal, for an instance, by having one of crystal. You can earn this medal, get the extra 5 points. And then the team ones, it's combined for the team. And so if me and my partner have a total of 3 crystals here, then we earn the team medal and we both get one of these. That's why there's 2 of them here, so that we both get a 5 point, because at the end of the team game, it's the lowest score between the 2 team members that counts for the team. So only one person, whoever gets the individual medal first, gets this one. However, the team medals, whichever team accomplishes this goal first, they each get one of the medals. Okay, so at this point, once you've got a stack of 10 tiles on each player's card, everybody's picked their character. You've got your mutagen monsters placed out. You've got all of your medals ready to go. You're pretty much ready to start the game. You can randomly choose who goes first through whatever your favorite means or methods may be. And then they call this a smart drafting game. So it works a little bit different than a regular draft that you would think of, where you're going to pass either to the right or the left. So we'll go ahead and give you an example. What you're going to do is you're going to pick up your first stack of tiles here, and you're going to look through them. You're going to make a decision on which one it is you want to keep. Okay, so let's say that we want to go ahead and keep this guy here. You'll place him face down. And then everybody else is also going to be looking at their tiles. And when you're done looking at your tiles, you can set your stack of tiles on any player board that you want. You can't set it on your own unless you are the last option. That can happen in 5-player games, where you do have to set your own stack down on your own spaceship. But in general, you're just going to find another player. You're going to set your stack on theirs. Somebody will set one on yours. And like in this case, this person would have to set it back on theirs. And that's a legal move, since there was no other spots for them to set their stack. So then everybody has picked one tile. What you're going to do is you're going to pick up your tile and flip it over and place it. You can place it anywhere you want on your character board, as long as the monster on the character board is facing upright. It can be adjacent to any other type of tile, but it can't go, you know, if it's not a sideways monster. There are a couple of sideways ones. It can't go like this. It can't go upside down, but it can go on the top or the bottom, you know, up here. I've got a little limited play space here, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it to the side. So everybody's going to flip over their tile and decide where they want to put it. Okay, and then you'll start that process over. Once everybody's done that, you'll pick up your tile stack. You're going to look at your tiles again. You're going to go ahead and pick a tile, place it face down, and then everybody else is going to be doing the same thing. And you'll set your stack on somebody else's stack. Okay, and you're going to repeat that process until there's only one tile left on each stack. Once everybody has 9 tiles placed in front of them, there'll be one left, and these just get picked up and discarded. Okay? And so what you're going to want to do before you start playing your first game is And I'll say that this was a little overwhelming in the beginning, is learning what all the different monsters do. The rule book does at the back do a very good job of explaining what each of the monsters does. The mutagen monsters, I'll go over them really quickly. The mutagen monsters are white monsters here. Okay, so that's a mutagen monster, and it is worth 3 points by itself. And then you see at the bottom here, it can go to 8 and then 18. So the way that works is, if you have your mutagen monster placed down and you pick up a mutagen tile like this, and you were to, I'm going to move this stuff out of the way here really quick so that I can show it to you. All right, so you got your mutagen monster here. Let's say you played that your first turn, you pick this one up for your second turn. You can play this mutagen monster here, and you have to have the mutagen rays aiming at that mutagen monster. If that happens, then you go and you look at these here, and we got a slug. So you find the slug, and you can tell because it goes to 8 points, and none of them have the same point values on them, so it's easy to figure out which one's which. So this one's worth 8 points now, and it can set on top. So now that's worth 8 points at the end of the game. Now it can, because it can still go to 18, it can be transformed again. If you draw another mutagen card later, you can play it at the top here and transform it, and then you would flip this over, and it'll be worth 18 points at the other game. Some of the monsters, like this, some of these have double mutagens on them. Some of the monsters, mutagen monsters, can only transform once. Some of them can transform twice, and it works either way. So, for example, with this monster, let's say your first tile you got was this, and you played it down like this here. And then on the next turn, you grabbed one of the slug tiles. Well, you're going to play your slug tile there. And since it already has the mutagen rays pointing at it, it's going to go ahead and transform into the slug right away. Okay, so that's mutagen monsters. That's how those monsters work. Next up is big monsters. Big monsters come in two parts. There's two halves to a big monster, the head and the tail, we'll call it, or the face and the butt, whatever you want. By itself, if at the end of the game you only have half of a big monster, it's worth 1 point. That's it. But you can, if you put them together, make the entire big monster, and at the end of the game, this is worth a combined total of 11 points. And you can do that as many times as you want, as many times as you can get both halves of the big monster. You can play them down and try to get as many pairs together to complete the big monster to get 11 points per big monster at the end of the game. Next up is swamp monsters. Now, a swamp monster by itself is worth 2 points. If you end the game with a single swamp monster, you get 2 points. Okay, but the swamp monsters, you can see this on your player aid here. They multiply the more you have. So if you end up with 2 swamp monsters at the end of the game, then you're going to end up with 8 points, because they're now going to be worth 4 apiece. If you get 3 swamp monsters at the end of the game, you're going to end up with 18 points, because they're now worth 6 apiece. Now there's a total of 5 swamp monsters total in all of the tiles, so you can, if you were to get all of them, get up to 50 points at the end of the game using swamp monsters. And that's all they do. It's just this specific monster. All the swamp tiles look exactly the same, and they just multiply off of each other. Okay, we're gonna go over 2 types of monsters at the same time here. You'll notice on some of the character cards, they have little symbols here, half pieces of crystals. And those crystals score points at the end of the game if you've completed them. Now, lava monsters are one of the main ways to get these crystals. Lava monsters, when you play them at the end of the game, they're going to be worth whatever the number it says on the lava monster is. But they also have the crystal points on them. So if you were to play this lava monster here, you would have created this half of the crystal. So at the end of the game, again on your player aid, it would tell you you're going to get 2 points for creating that crystal, and you can do that as many times as you can throughout the game to add those points up. There is also these circles. Those are top to bottom. They're a little bit harder to create, but those give you 5 points each. And then there's also the 4-point crystals. They're worth 10 points, and you've got to connect 4 things. Now, the reason I said that we're going to go over 2 types of monsters at the same time is because there's also the rune monsters. Now, all the rune monsters they don't give you any points by themselves, but they do have crystal pieces on them, as you can see here and here. And I'll talk about this a little bit more when I talk about the desert tiles as well, but the main point of rune monsters is at the end of the game, whoever has the fewest desert tiles and rune tiles combined gets this medal. This medal is worth negative 10 points. So these don't do a lot for you during the game, but they will help you avoid that medal at the end of the game. And again, even though they're not the same type of monster, they still can be combined like this to complete crystals, right? So they don't have to be 2 lava monsters next to each other to complete a crystal. These guys can get next to each other and create crystals too. Same thing with the blue crystals or the red crystals. The next type of monster we're going to go over is the grass monsters. Now, the grass monsters all do something different. They don't give you any base points, like maybe the lava monsters or the big monster, or the ice monsters. But they give you multipliers. So this one gives you, at the end of the game, if you've played this monster down, you get 1 point for every lava monster tile you have down. This one gives you an extra 2 points for every completed green crystal you have. This one gives you 3 points for every desert tile you have. This one gives you 1 extra point for each one of the crystals that you have on the board completed at the end of the game. I won't go over all of the different grass monsters because there's about 9 of them. However, again, at the back of the rule book, there is a very detailed explanation of what each one of them does, so you're going to want to have that handy when you go to score at the end of the game. The monster we're going to go over is the desert monster tile. This tile doesn't do anything for you whatsoever by itself. It gives you no points. There's a grass monster, lets you multiply or gets you points for having them. The main purpose of this tile is very specifically to avoid getting the negative 10 consequence at the end of the game for having the fewest rune and desert tiles added up between all the players. And then also there is a desert medal when you're playing in single player mode. Or 2-player mode, it's the first person to 3 desert tiles gets this 10-point medal, and that adds 10 points at the end of the game. Okay, so scoring in this game is very, very simple. You're going to obviously want to have a pen or a pencil with you. You can put your player names up here, and then you're going to just go through each player. Everybody's going to have their entire board laid out in front of them, and you're just going to go through and add up all the tiles. So in the first column, you're going to add up all your ice tile score. That means you're just going to add up the number of points you have on your board, the total number of points shown on all of your ice tiles. Then you're going to go to big monster tiles. Again, if you have both of them, they're worth 11. If you have one that doesn't have the other half, it's worth 1. Then you go to the lava score tiles, and on this tile, again, you're just adding up the numbers that appear on all of your lava tiles. Then you're going to go to your grassland tiles, and those are the ones that have the multipliers. Those are the ones that are going to give you, this one gives you 1 for every lava tile you have. So that one's you may need to look at the rule book to figure out which ones you have so that you can score that correctly. And you can go your swamp tiles. And again, it gives you a nice little aid here. If you have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, it tells you how many points you're going to have. Then you'll go ahead and add up all your crystals, any completed crystals that you have on your board. So if you have 6 green crystals, you'll have 12 points. maybe you have one of these, a red crystal at 5 points, and then maybe you've completed a blue crystal, so you'll end up with 27 points in the crystal column. Then you'll add up your explorer tile here. This is any bonuses that you may have received from your explorer. Not all explorers give a bonus points at the end of the game. This one gives you 1 bonus point for every lava tile you have at the end of the game. This one doesn't give you any bonuses, but it does have a mutagen guy that will let you transform one of your ice monsters right away. Then you're going to add up your medals, any medals that you've received for being the first player to achieve the goals set forth by the medals. And then you're also going to assign the -10 medal. And the way to do that is everybody's going to add up their desert and their rune tiles together. Whoever has the least of those combined gets the -10 point medal. And then you have your total for individual scores. And then there's a total for team scores as well. And team scoring works is you add up everybody's individual scores. And this is the main difference between team games and free-for-all games is the scoring, and there's also a board difference as well. But the main difference is the way scoring works. So everybody's going to add up all their points and put the totals, and then your team score is the lowest of the two. So if this guy ends up with 100 and this guy ends up with 67, your team score is going to be 67. And then the highest team score will win. Or if you're playing individual, obviously whoever has the most individual points would be the winner of the game. A couple of things to keep in mind while you're scoring for a team game. You're going to individually score here for each team member. When it comes to medals, you need to make sure that you're giving, for the individual medal, only the team member that achieved that first gets it. For the that's these that have the single player icon on it. So the first person to 4 of these tiles gets this medal for 5 points. Now the first team to get a combined total, it doesn't have to be 4 and 4, but a combined total of 8 gets, each member gets a 5-point medal. Now that means that one team member could have all 8 of these tiles, but both team members are going to get the 5-point medal when that happens. And then also at the end of the game, you're going to add up both teammates' desert and rune tiles here. Add those totals together. The team with the lowest, each team member is going to get the -10 point medal. Because once you're done individually scoring for everybody, the team score is the lowest teammate's score. So if this person has 100 and this person has 50, the team score is going to be 50. Well, I really appreciate you guys checking out the video. I will have a separate video on how to play this in 2-player mode because it is very different. And we actually really like this game. It's a different style of drafting game. We like tile games. There's lots of strategy involved. Everybody that I've played it with so far has had a lot of fun with it. We do have a review video up for it, so we'll link that as well. I'll put a link to the 2-player tutorial in the video description as well. Go ahead and leave us some comments. If you have any questions about rules or gameplay, go ahead and leave those. If I missed something, let me know. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Check us out on Facebook, social media, and we'll see you next time.